Hey, John Maxwell here. Welcome again to Monday with Maxwell. I look forward every Monday to spending a few minutes with you and talking about best advice. And here's why. I have grown a lot personally from people sharing with me best advice. And I love having a conversation, maybe around a dinner table, and asking people, what's the best advice that you ever received? Who gave it to you? And why was it such good advice? Because what I learned is what's best advice for you sometimes is just great advice for me. And there's just I think a beautiful, growing, learning, compounding effect when we began to talk about just the best advice that we've ever heard or received in our life. And this may be your first Monday with Maxwell with me. You may have been with me from the very beginning because we've been doing this now for months. And I thought this would be maybe an appropriate time to just take a minute and review some of the best advice lessons that we've had. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a little bit of review, and then I'm going to ask my dear friend, CEO Mark Cole, to come because he's got something very special for you. And then I'm going to give you the best advice that I read just the other day from Jeff Bezos. So we got a lot to pack in 22 minutes, so let's rock and roll. Here's some of the best advice lessons that we've been talking about, learning about. Best advice lessons such as attitude is the difference maker. It's not everything, but it's the main thing. You know, Ed Bastian, CEO of Delta Airlines, taught us that humility is essential to leadership. And Ed basically said, if you're not a humble leader, you're not a teachable and growing leader. Wow, that was so good. I talked about the fact that you're only as good as your last book, and if you're not a writer, you can forget about as good as your last book. You're just as good as your last sale if you're in sales. Whatever you're doing, remember this: you can't coast on yesterday. You've got to continually improve and be good today and do it well. Dan Cathy, CEO of Chick-fil-A, gave us this great best advice: leaders need to be self-aware. And they need to also be structurally aware. In other words, they need to be self-aware as a leader so that they can improve themselves, but they need to be structurally aware so they can see what their facilities are like and how can they expand and how can they improve. I did a best advice on communication in the past. I entitled it, It's Not About You. In other words, just get over yourself. Jack Nicklaus, when I asked him best advice, he gave me two of them, and I taught both of those to you. Follow the golden rule was Jack's first thing that he shared, and I thought how interesting. The golden bear, Jack Nicklaus, is talking to us about the golden rule: treat others as you want to be treated. And then Jack also that evening said, well, you know, John, there's another thing I would want to share with people, and that's when he talked to us about understand yourself. And I found that to be very insightful. It was almost like an afterthought with Jack, but when he was basically saying understand yourself, he says, when I look and talk with golfers and try to pour into them and help them, he said many of the mistakes they make in golf is they don't understand themselves. And because of that, they try shots they shouldn't try, and they try to do things that probably they need to work on before they put it on the game. So such good advice, things like this. And then I did a best advice on consistency compounds and how we get better because of our consistency. And I just loved that lesson. I thought it was so helpful. Jamie Kern Lima, wow, this lady is dynamite. The advice she gave, I'll never forget teaching it because I thought it was so effective to me and to you. She said, authenticity alone doesn't guarantee success. However, lack of authenticity guarantees failure. And this precious, precious lady leader who is so authentic just really helped us drive home that thought that we need to be authentic. And then I did a best advice on people see what they expect to see. What you expect to see, that's what you're going to see. Hey, our good friends Brad and Julie Duncan, wow, when they taught and gave us the advice of how we view things as how we do things, and they especially talked about in their family background, how their family helped them and gave them guidance on perspective. That was huge. And then I did a lesson on preparation reflection. just maximize every experience. Wow, Chris Hodges did a great lesson on live by principle, not by pressure. And I also just have given lessons that have helped us concerning failure and success and how they belong together. Well, okay, you get it. We've had a lot of best advice on Money with Maxwell, and I'm about to give you another one. Oh, by the way, Andrew, he jumped in and Andrew gave us his advice. I love this one. Andrew says, if at first you don't succeed, maybe skydiving isn't for you. I love that. Way to go, Andrew. You always come through with something humorous and funny. Now, I'm going to share with you in a moment the advice of Jeff Bezos, but Mark, come on over here. We're in the studio together, and I asked Mark, I said, I'm going to do a little review, and then I want you to jump in here. Mark, we've been very excited because on Mondays with Maxwell, we've been able to talk about our John Maxwell Team, our coaching company, and have really been able to encourage people to find out about us and perhaps even maybe be one of our coaches. We'd love to have you on the team. And then Mark had this idea, and I loved it, and I want you to share with the people just how we would like to maybe encourage them to at least think about or look at the John Maxwell Team.
Well, you say, going back in reflection of some of the best advice we've learned, what we learned last week, John, is this idea, this offer that I'm getting ready to share with you was so well received, and you guys liked it so much that we thought we'd bring it back again this week. And so,
play it again, Sam.
Yeah, exactly. Every week for many weeks, we highlighted one of John Maxwell's multipliers, people that John's added value to that has committed their life, their business, to add value to others. In fact, these have become some of our certified coaches, speakers, trainers that are out building a business and helping their communities with their John Maxwell Team coaching solution. And so we're making that available to you. Now, you know that. You can find out all the information about that at mondayswithmaxwell.com. Again, that's mondayswithmaxwell.com. But what we're going to do today is for all of you that go to mondayswithmaxwell.com, fill out the form to get more information. We're going to send those of you in the United States that responds within the next 24 hours, we're going to send you a free copy of John's book, How Successful People Think. It's an incredible book, one of our favorite. It's a 1 million copy seller. And so we're going to send that to you that will put into your life, that will add value to you so that you can join us at the John Maxwell Team in multiplying value to others. John, my hope is to give you a return on this great advice that you're giving. We will mobilize an army to go and multiply value to others. Join us today, mondayswithmaxwell.com. We look forward to joining up with you to make a difference in the world. Thank you, John.
Well, thank you, Mark. So all they have to do is really just go to mondayswithmaxwell.com and fill out the information.
Yep.
And they get the book.
They get the book.
That's a great deal.
That's a good deal. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Jeff Bezos, I was reading this a couple of weeks ago, and I'll have to say, this really grabbed me. In fact, I said to myself, this truly is some of the best advice I have ever read. Here's what he said. Take pride in your choices, not your gifts. He said that in 2016 at an awards show in Seattle. And I'm going to read literally what he said because it is so impacting. Jeff said, take pride in your choices, not your gifts. This is something that's super important for young people to understand and for parents to preach to young people. It's really easy for a talented young person to take pride in their gifts. Well, I'm really athletic, or I'm really smart, or I'm really good at math. That's fine. You should celebrate your gifts. You should be happy. But you can't be proud of them. What you can be proud of is your choices. How did you decide to use your gifts? Did you study hard? Did you work hard? Did you practice? The people who excel combine gifts and hard work. And the hard work, now that is a choice. You get to decide that. And that is something that when you're looking back on your life, you will be very proud of. Again, what's Jeff say? Take pride in your choices, not your gifts. You know, when I read that, this advice just aligns so much with the research of Carol Dweck, who is a psychology prof at Stanford. I'm sure you read after her, but if you don't know her work, she's just conducted some very high compelling studies about teaching children to adopt what she calls a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. So Carol says there's a growth mindset, which is all about effort, and then there's a fixed mindset, which is all about giftedness. And parents encourage their kids sometimes in the wrong way. They praise the gifts instead of the effort. And if you praise the gifts, that's a fixed mindset. Now let me explain what I mean by that. Dweck found that in a series of experiments that praising kids' gifts as opposed to their effort can actually lead to less effort because children begin to develop the fear of failing. And the fear of failing encourages a fixed mindset over time opposed to a growth mindset. She even says that the way mothers praise babies and preschoolers as young as 1 to 3 years old allowed her team to predict the children's mindset and desire for challenge 5 years later. You know, my dad, I didn't realize this when I was a kid, but when I would bring my report card home, he would look at it and then he would say, now, you know, the most important grade on your card is your effort. And he always gave me, I mean, we had a little monetary system as far as kind of getting a little financial reward for the grade. He always gave me a little bit more for a good grade and effort than in any of my studies. And he went back to exactly what Bezos is talking about and what Carol Dweck is talking about when she said, what you want to do is have a growth mindset. When you have a growth mindset, you're going to fail. You're going to have some losses, and it's all about effort versus a fixed mindset was, oh my gosh, I'm very gifted, and I don't want to fail. I was having a conversation a couple years ago with Coach Matthew Mitchell. He's a very good friend of mine. And for several years, he was a very successful coach at the University of Kentucky ladies basketball team. And so we were having one of those conversations when he was a coach there. And he asked me, he said, John, when do I push my players? And when am I patient with them? When do I push them? When am I patient with them? And I gave him that day, I'll never forget, we were in the University of Kentucky cafeteria over in the corner, just kind of by ourselves. And I gave him the 3P principle. And the 3P principle is you push their effort, you pull their talent, and you're patient with them in their growth. Now, what do I mean? When I say you push their effort, that's all about motivating them to work harder. When I talk about pulling their talent, that's all about inspiration. And let me give you the difference. In motivating people, when I'm pushing you to do something that you may not want to do, I'm pushing you for effort. When I'm pulling you, I'm pulling out your giftedness. I'm pulling out of you what's already inside of you. When I'm pushing you, which is your talent, when I'm pushing you towards something that you probably wouldn't go for if I weren't there. You see, push requires servanthood, teamwork, culture, values, and vision, where the pull is all about what's already in you, your strengths, your temperament, your motivation. So as a leader, I pull out of you the stuff that is inside of you, and I push you in the things that are outside of you that I want to get in. So when Jeff talked about, let's make sure that we praise and put our emphasis upon the choices, not the gifts. I thought that was some of the best parental advice that I've ever heard. And I thought, I think this works. I wrote a book several years ago. It's called Beyond Talent. And the side title of the book is basically Become Someone Who Gets Extraordinary Results. And the Beyond Talent book is basically, the thesis of it is that the key choices that you make will set you apart from those who have talent alone, that talent is never enough, and that if you and I make the right choices, the good choices, the solid choices, it'll give us a step above people who just rely on talent by themselves. And so when I looked at that, I thought to myself, the Beyond Talent book, the talent is never enough principle, goes back to what Jeff is saying on Best Advice. Take pride in your choices, not your gifts. And so in Beyond Talent, I talk about choices and gifts. And for example, I said belief lifts your talent. That's very true. The passion energizes your talent. Initiative activates your talent. Focus directs your talent. Preparation positions your talent. Practice sharpens your talent. Perseverance sustains your talent. Courage tests your talent, and teachability expands your talent. Character protects your talent. Relationships influence your talent. Responsibility strengthens your talent, and teamwork multiplies your talent. Now, in each one of those chapters in my book, Beyond Talent, I'm basically saying you need to be a talent plus person. Talent alone is not enough. That's what Bezos said. That's what Carol Dweck says. She said, if you rely on talent, you have a fixed mindset. And basically, after a while, it gets very fixed and you have a fear of failure. But if you have a growth mindset, as Carol says, or as if Jeff Bezos, as he says, if you will praise and compliment, if you'll take the things that require effort, not praise the gifts, but praise the choices they make. And when I looked at the choices in my book, when I looked at belief and passion and initiative, what am I saying? When you see your teammates, when you see the person that you work with, when you see your child preparing in their talent, even though they're talented, when you see them practicing, even though they're talented, and you see them persevering, even though they're talented, it's those choices of courage and teachability and character. If you'll really praise them, that's where the return is. And then you'll develop in your child's life, just like you'll develop in your team's life, a desire to make their improvement in the areas that it's possible for them to improve in. So I'm going to be working on this for some time, because I just think that Jeff Bezos said something that just helps me. I hope it helps you. Take pride in your choices, not in your gifts. The gifts I have, the gifts you have, they were God-given. But the choices is what maximizes those gifts in your life. So thanks for being with me on Mondays with Maxwell. Thanks for listening to Best Advice. Thanks for letting me bring Jeff Bezos into your life. Thanks for listening to Mark Cole, because what he's really wanting to do and I'm wanting to do is we want to add value to you. And we know that for many of you, if you'll just go to mondayswithmaxwell.com and if you'll just kind of register for us, we'll send you the book. Because why are we doing that? Because we want to add value to you, and because we believe you have more potential than maybe even you give yourself credit for. So thanks for joining with me today, and I'll see you next Monday.